Our presentation is on the behavior of prehistoric organisms, told to us through their trace fossils and body fossils. We will be discussing behavioral characteristics in bilaterian and theropod dinosaurs.
The paper discussed in these next few slides is entitled Trace Fossils with Spreiten from the Late Ediacaran Mammal Group in Namibia. Complex feeding patterns 5 million years before the Precambrian-Cambrian boundary. Precambrian life is most commonly viewed as small, simple organisms without any complex feeding patterns. The atmosphere did not contain molecular oxygen at this time and was comprised mainly of nitrogen. The earth was covered mostly by water, however, small land masses appeared towards the end of the Ediacaran period. The main focus of this paper is whether or not there are complex feeding patterns present in the Precambrian period. The evidence and data for this paper was drawn from the Strauss Formation in southern Namibia, which you can see on the map here. Trace fossils, which had a U-shape and small protrusions coming off, were analyzed for this research. They were only 3 to 10 centimeters wide and went in many different directions across the trace fossil bed. They are created by a small bilaterian scooting backward under and through the sediment. Here you can see the direction of burrowing from the bilaterian and later its emergence site. These trace fossils were compared to other fossils found around the world. Both displayed similar complex feeding patterns and overlapped in the geologic timescale. Comparisons were also drawn between these trace fossils and those found from the Cambrian area, and both display the same complex feeding pattern. The results from this analysis suggest that complex burrowing feeding existed before previously thought in the Precambrian period. Multiple examples in location and time help confirm the presence of this complex feeding pattern. Complex feeding may have been even more prevalent in Ediacaran fauna. However, trace fossils do not preserve well from this time, so we are not quite sure. Precambrian creatures could also have been more intricate than previously thought, especially near the Precambrian-Cambrian boundary just before the Cambrian explosion.
Now let's talk about the hunting behavior of Deinonychus, Anteropus, and other Namibian theropod dinosaurs. The original theory is that this dinosaur was a pack hunter, which was interpreted from a... In pack hunting, members of the same species work together to capture larger prey, which provides a wider prey spectrum. This also shows an increase in intelligence in this animal. For example, wolves stick together socially so they are able to be pack hunters. In cooperative feeding, members will work together to feed on already captured prey, excluding their young in case the adults start fighting and it could get dangerous. This is different from pack hunting because one animal captures the prey but cannot defend it from others because it is too big. For example, a crocodile captures an animal and attracts their fellow species since they smell the fresh food. Namibian theropods supposedly had prey much larger than themselves. Evidence of this is large herbivores had defense armor, theropod teeth were found with skeletons of large herbivores, and there are more instances of tooth-marked bones in larger herbivores than smaller herbivores. D. Anteropus definitely fed on larger prey since their teeth were found in the remains of animals larger than them, but this is not evidence that they were pack hunters. Auras are large extant lizards. They are suggested to be similar to theropods in the way they attack and the mechanics of their bites. Komodo dragons are capable of killing 10 times their body weight, with intense bites to the abdomen causing death in a few minutes through massive bleeding. They rarely feed alone, and other auras are drawn by the scent of kill. So in the re-examination of D. Anteropus, in conclusion, auras, similar to theropods in their bite patterns, hunted alone and captured much larger prey. Therefore, so could D. Anteropus. At the site, one of the 4 members of D. Anteropus had a fracture in its leg, showing that they could have captured and killed its prey with powerful kicks to cause serious bleeding. The site suggests that cooperative feeding occurred. Also, there were no traces of young at the site. Young would not participate in any cooperative feeding.
Now let's look at the gregarious behavior of ornithomimids. Ornithomimosaurs are a group of theropods known mainly from the Cretaceous of Asia and North America. Ornithomimid is Greek for bird mimics. They were named this due to their similarities with flightless birds such as emus and ostriches. Fossils of ornithomimids are very rare, especially skulls. Only 2 bonebeds of ornithomimids have been found before this, both of which are in China. Due to the rareness of the bonebed itself and the location of it, The researchers are trying to figure out the implications the discovery has on the behavior of ornithomimids. The researchers found fossils of 3 different ornithomimids, which have been given the names CMN 12068, CMN 12069, and CMN 12070. First, let's look at CMN 12068. It is the largest of the 3 skeletons, and the appendicular elements, such as the femur, fibula, tibia, metatarsals, and pedal phalanges, were best preserved. Next, let's look at CMN 12069. It is less complete than 12068, but is the best preserved of the 3 skeletons. It has very well preserved vertebrae and peds, as well as appendicular elements. Finally, let's look at CMN 12070. It is the least complete and most poorly preserved specimen. It includes a series of 4 proximal caudal vertebrae and associated chevrons, an isolated pubic boot, fragmentary metatarsals, and 2 pedal phalanges. The researchers prepared the specimen from their plaster jackets using standard paleontological preparation techniques. In order to compare and classify the ornithomimids to others, they scored them for a cladistic data matrix. All individual elements contained within the bonebed specimens were measured using digital calipers, with each measurement taking 3 times an average. This is the first ornithomimid bonebed found in North America. Due to the condition of skeletons and the site itself, it is believed that if the specimen were moved, it was only a short distance. They also could have died at the site, but parts of the specimen were washed away or weathered down. This bonebed provides further evidence of the gregarious behavior of ornithomimids and the difficulty that scientists have with classifying them.
Next paper we will be discussing is entitled The Behavioral Implication of Multi-Individual Bonebed of a Small Theropod Dinosaur. The location of the fossils discovered was in central Patagonia, Argentina, in the Upper Cretaceous Bajo Burial Formation. In all, there were 5 small non-avian theropod dinosaurs recovered, and each was identified as being an Anikisaurus specimen. The group of Anikisaurus specimens found are only the second discovery of small coelurosaurian theropods in South America. This means that the findings will provide some important insight and information on the behavior of small non-avian theropods, which are less studied in that area. This analysis of Anikisaurus will help give insight on whether or not non-avian theropods showed gregarious behavior. Fossils that were tested include the tibiae and femora bones. In order to assess the somatic ages and ontogenetic growth stages of the study specimens, histological fin sections were made from the mid-shaft of the left and right tibiae. The location the specimens were found was noted to be in a fluvial environment. The sediment of the Anikisaurus was transported and then redeposited by a gentle fluvial channel. Also, through the testing, 3 pieces of evidence were presented, proving that all the fossils found were from the same species. The first evidence comes from the histological fin sections that were studied. It shows that both tibiae were from the same morphologies. Second, in the tibiae, both theropod and coelurosaurian features were present. And third, there was no indication that any other sort of species was present in the location where the theropods had died. When the fossils were found, the majority of the long bones were damaged through surface polishing and irregular flaking, while other bones show less damage. The reason why some of the fossils show erosion while others do not is because there might have been more than one stage of burial. Further evidence is shown by the little scratch marks on some of the fossils. This means that before the specimens could be deposited, some sort of organism had tampered with them. Cannibalism would be suggested to be a factor. There was no evidence. Instead, scavengers are the likely cause. All the specimens found in the quarry died together at relatively the same time, and the juvenile Anichosauruses died not only at the same time, but at the same age. The behavioral implication is that Anichosaurus was to some extent gregarious. Gregarious behavior could have been present at certain times of its life, or from other stages like adulthood, it might have lived in solitude. Through the fossils studied, Anichosaurus darwini to some degree did show gregarious behavior, and because they moved in groups, they could survive better in their environment. This discovery of Anichosaurus has provided vital information on small non-avian theropods and their behavior during the late Cretaceous period. Understanding behavioral characteristics in fossils is very difficult, since the organisms themselves are dead, but through trace fossils and placement of body fossils, paleontologists can better understand how these organisms lived and interacted. The research articles that were reviewed explain a few behavioral traits these organisms had when they were still alive. Much more research would have to be conducted to be able to better understand these organisms that lived so long ago.